welcome to episode 15 of Breaking News Bears. I'm your host, Evan. I'm in the sunny California, and I'm joined with people in the six. We got Mateo Ruiz and Mario Russo. How's it going, guys?
It's going good. It's going
Good
good.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah, weather's crappy here. I don't know about you guys.
Hey,
but
weather's good here. So
it's getting better.
It's been a rough week, but yeah, today looked good. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like is the weather still like discombobulated where, one sunny day and
we're in the rainy season now where it's just
okay.
always gray outside, but today was a nice surprise. The sun showed up. Yeah.
Got to dust off the shorts. That's
yeah.
There was some dust on them. I'll give you that. But yeah, it was rewarding to say the least. I was happy.
Yeah, they were guarantee you they're at the bottom of your drawer.
We were digging.
No, the shorts drawer hasn't been opened in a good 6 months now.
But when it opens, it rarely closes.
Oh yeah, it stays open.
Yeah,
it's short season. It's short season now.
Yeah. All right. Glad to hear it. So let's get into some baseball talk. We talked at the beginning of our podcast with the Cincinnati Reds and how they were kind of freeloading on a bunch of their players. We saw fans even boycotting outside of the stadium. And times haven't gotten any better. The Reds are currently 3-22 with a run differential of -84. And for all you football fans out there, the Cincinnati Bengals have won more games in 2022 than the Cincinnati Reds. So, and the football season ended in February, mind you. So if there's any glimmer of hope, it's that the football season is shortly coming up in the next few months. So, alcoholism is going to kick in until about October. But the Reds have also given up 156 runs. And if you do the calculations, that's averaging 6 runs per game. And they are getting no offensive help. Joey Votto, who we were pleading to get out of Cincinnati, is batting 122. A 278 on base percentage, a 135 slugging percentage, 0 home runs, and 3 RBIs. So this is where I turn to you guys. And I was having this discussion with my dad, and I was thinking, if Joey Votto was in a better situation, do you think the production would be there? Because honestly, if I'm him, I'm at the very end of my career. Team has no success. It's just the motivation to get out of bed just is non-existent. So, Mateo, I ask you first, if Joey Votto was on another team, do you think he would be the Joey Votto we're used to seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Joey Votto this season is the one thing that hasn't gone down is the walks numbers. He's still taking his pitches. He's still getting on base. The difference is he's not hitting the ball the way we're used to seeing Joey Votto. And part of that might be he's getting older, his age is catching up to him. But part of it, as you mentioned, might just be that he knows he has nothing to play for this season in Cincinnati, and he's just so uninspired. I mean, I don't want to use it as an out or anything like that, but we've seen, he's now on social media. He's finding other ways to distract himself, and he's very active on social media for a guy that was very against it for, the better part of his major league career. Mm-hmm. And now he's, deciding to embrace it. And maybe this is a reflection of, we have a more carefree Joey Votto because there are no expectations on him this season, and there are no expectations for his team to do well. Granted, the Reds are on pace, I think, with 3-22 to have the worst record in Major League Baseball history at the moment, and they definitely need to get their act together or their season is going to be flat out embarrassing. But nobody's expecting this Reds team to make a deep playoff run. Nobody's expecting them to be anywhere near the playoffs. And so Votto, who's a very competitive guy, maybe on the other end of that, seeing, all right, I don't have anything to play for here, and might have lost that focus that's so key to being able to, repeat your production year in, year out, especially as you get older.
Yeah, and also the MLB season, it's a grind. It's 162 games, and sometimes maybe you just need that little leeway to find some sort of happiness, because it seems like it's very hard to find that in Cincinnati. Yeah. Mario, I ask you, we obviously talk about Joey Votto's struggles. There's also Luis Castillo, who had a lot of value in the market. There were teams that were definitely calling the phone lines, and Cincinnati was reluctant to give up Luis Castillo. I believe he's battling an injury right now, should be coming back momentarily. But do you think the Reds should trade Luis Castillo, given the fact that, they're not competing for anything. And at this point, what good is Castillo to the Reds?
Absolutely. And I mean, listen, the Reds, I don't think they should trade him. I think they're just going to trade him because that's sort of the trend that everyone has been sort of being treated as in the Cincinnati Reds organization. I was surprised they didn't go before the season started, much like I'm sure you and Mateo maybe. But I think he's going to go at the deadline probably. I don't think anything's going to happen in between then. You rarely see trades kind of flow in between now and then. So Cincinnati is going to get a decent haul for him if he ends up doing the best he can. I know he doesn't have a lot in front of him or the pieces around him to get the wins, but if he can start making his season in his own stock, let it rise, there's no reason why this guy can't succeed in new places. The thing about the Cincinnati Reds, though, that I do want to speak about, we all talked about ourselves all getting into summer jobs now. Would you want to work under a really garbage manager? Would you do you feel motivated to go into work any day and put in your best efforts? At times you feel like you might want to slack off a little bit and maybe sabotage it because, this guy's not treating you any better. So I'm not going to say any of the Cincinnati Reds players are sabotaging or anything, because that's an extreme allegation to throw around. But I can see from their body language, Joey Votto, he's the big one. Like, his numbers don't just drop overnight. Joey Votto in his prime and Joey Votto in his older age, I really never found a big difference. It's just Joey Votto, and he always comes up to the ballpark with a purpose. He's not really coming up with a purpose anymore, and none of these players are, and I don't blame them whatsoever. You have a crummy manager who doesn't want to put money in, who doesn't want to help this team. The Cincinnati Reds were just one piece away, maybe two. You can argue that side as well, but they were so close to being a contending team. They had the pieces. They had Bauer, Sonny Gray. They had a decent rotation, Castillo. It looked good for a little bit, and then they just let it crumble for no reason. But we've had this conversation already. So all I say is get the helicopter ready. We have to go free Joey Votto. That's on the absolute must. We talked about that, and that is
wanted.
He is wanted. I feel like if he goes anywhere else, he's going to have success. Same as Luis Castillo, because you're just around a toxic culture, toxic fan base. I won't even say toxic fan base because it's not even their fault. They just don't. I wouldn't want to go to a Cincinnati Reds game either. So
yeah,
it's an ugly story brewing in Cincinnati. I hope Votto gets free. I hope Castillo gets free just for the betterment of their careers, because they're really dying right now in Cincy, and there's no signs of it getting better. And I don't think it will. This one's a definite answer from me.
Yeah, and I don't know if Castillo and Votto really want to wait until the deadline, because that's by the All-Star break, and that's in July. So I don't think for their mental health wise, they should not be in Cincinnati. And I know you were saying it's uncommon for trades to kind of percolate before like a quarter of the season is done. But I mean, if Castillo's manager and Votto's, we've seen times where guys just say like, screw it. Like, I'm just not going to play anymore. But I think that's enough talk for the Cincinnati Reds. God bless them and whatever it is they do with themselves. But I want to talk about your guys' team, the Toronto Blue Jays, who going into the regular season at the beginning of the year had the second best odds behind the Dodgers to win it all. They were the favorites in the American League, and they started off hot. Obviously, that first game against the Rangers opening night with Jose Barrios not even making it through in a full inning was definitely a concern, but the Blue Jays were able to pull off the win there. We were just talking live right now. Barrios again with another shaky start, made it 4 2/3 innings, giving up 6 runs, throwing 82 pitches, and their pitchers have allowed the most hits in the AL, fourth most in the MLB at 211. They're 13th in WHIP and 22nd in batting average against. On the flip side, the offense has been carrying the load, but I just want to ask the two Blue Jay fans, the diehard Blue Jay fans, do you think this is sustainable in order for the Blue Jays to make a run towards October? And Mateo, I'll start with you here, talking about Blue Jays. We thought they were a top 5 rotation in baseball, but the way that they're performing right now, it seems like they might be just outside the top 5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my thing is, it's not sustainable. This is the kind of production you're getting right now, both from your pitching and your offense. Granted, your pitching has been better from your offense, but both need to improve. Isn't going to win you a World Series, isn't going to get you deep in the playoffs. The way the Blue Jays are playing right now, they're not playing like the team that they were expected to be at the beginning of the year. And part of that is to do with injuries, and part of that is to do with just guys being unavailable and, unexpected things happening. And, a lot of that stuff that happens in the early season when teams are sort of trying to settle into things and players are getting used to their new roles. And, you're trying to make up for the loss of a guy who was in, top 3 MVP consideration and the Cy Young, which granted they have covered pretty well. But there were a lot of question marks coming into the season. There was a lot of uncertainty with the Blue Jays, and the Jays that we've seen on the field right now are not the Jays that they're going to be at the end of the year. You have all these stats over here you were talking about. Their pitchers have given up, some of the most hits in the AL, and their offense is, they've done well in the home run department, but they're not doing well in terms of batting average. They're not doing as well as they should in terms of runs. And part of that is the one stat you don't have here that I think is really important to consider is the fact that the Jays, as of a few days ago, were dead last in average with runners in scoring position.
Oh, I don't
In
have
Major
those
League,
advanced.
in Major League Baseball, the 30th ranked team with runners in scoring position. I don't know if you've looked at the offense recently. There's some holes in the lineup because of the injuries. Obviously, Teoscar Hernandez, Danny Jansen is a guy who even, thickens out that lineup so you don't have to play Bradley Zimmer every day. But to be 30th in Major League Baseball in average of runners in scoring position, when you have teams like the Cincinnati Reds we just talked about, who are absolutely floundering and not trying to win, to be dead last with the amount of offensive talent you have on your team, that's not going to last.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to last. And by the end of the year, the Jays are going to be exactly where they were last year, which is a top 5 team in terms of, average with runners in scoring position. And you're going to start to see these 2-run games against very beatable teams turn into 5-6 run games because they're not going to be leaving 10 runners on base every night like they did against the Yankees the other day.
Yeah. And
so,
sorry.
Yeah, no. So just to sort of round up my point there, it's not sustainable. If the Jays play like this for the rest of the year, it's going to be an absolute embarrassment and a complete disappointment to everybody who had picked the Jays to go far. But I personally don't believe that this is the real Jays that we're seeing just yet. I think there's still a little bit of growing pains and they're settling into their season still. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the offense. They're currently 20th in runs, but they're 3rd in home runs. So it's kind of like kind of remind me of the Bronx Bombers a little bit of last year, where it's like if they're
the home runs the only way they're scoring now.
Yeah,
that's the only way they're scoring runs.
Yeah, the only way they're scoring runs right now. And you bring up the point. Sorry, Mario, I'll get to you in a second. I just want to say you bring up the point of the injuries, and I think a huge concern to go with that is the lack of depth that's on the team. Because we look at the playoffs and like you see the charts that MLB will put up of like, oh, the amount of guys that were used in a game. And when you get to the World Series or even like the Championship Series, a lot of those guys are marked off because managers are just trying to find every which way to make sure that injuries don't become a concern. So definitely something that the Jays can pick up, but I mean, the injuries aren't helping. Mario, you've been to a ton of games as well. What are you seeing? And I know Mateo said that it isn't sustainable. So I want to ask you the question of what changes do you think need to be made in terms of pitching? Because we obviously had high expectations with Kevin Gausman, Kikuchi kind of being a middle setup guy, Manoah having a breakout year, Barrios signing a new contract. So what do you think needs to change?
There is, it's going to happen within. Obviously, you're not going to go reaching out to other sources and try to help this out. Injuries are going to heal and guys are going to be back in the lineup. So that's obviously going to help. There's still a lot of things to help the Blue Jays, but the biggest thing that I think needs to improve would have to be the production from their back 2 starters. Because right now they're rolling 3 guys who are in fuego. I don't think I've seen this much good pitching come from the Jays in quite some time. Barrios, obviously tonight's a different story, and there's been a couple shaky starts, but for the most part, he's been
pretty good.
Very good.
He might have gotten hurt today, actually,
Yeah.
Barrios. Yeah, I don't know if you were seeing when he came out of the game, but
really,
yeah,
it's brutal.
Yeah.
But up to this point, at least, he's been more than adequate. Gausman has been terrific. He's up for right now, obviously, really, really early season predictions, but Cy Young talks, he's in there as well.
Sure.
Alek Manoah. So these guys are all carrying their weight. Guys that I'm really shaking my head around, and Ryu, obviously, he hasn't been healthy, but when he comes back, he has to come back and come back strong, because what he was putting up beforehand and leading up to his injury was unacceptable. And if you want to be a team with World Series expectations and meet those expectations properly, you need to have all 5 guys running on all cylinders. And even Kikuchi, he hasn't been injured yet, and he has been getting as much starts as anyone else, and he has not been able to get through and as strong as the rest of his pack. So
I want to say, though, for Kikuchi last night against the Yankees, though, that was probably the best I've seen him in a Blue Jays uniform. And you know, I was at the game and I saw it live, and the key was the fastball. He gave up that home run to Gallo on the fastball, and the next pitch, he throws a fastball to the next batter. I don't know if it was Falefa, I think, throws a fastball for the next pitch, ground ball to third base, and he's right back in his rhythm. And he stayed in the game with the fastball, and he trusted his stuff, and it got him through 6 innings.
Exactly. And that's what has to channel into the next couple of starts, because you got to see consistency from this guy. You got to see consistency from the back end. Ross Stripling, they're kind of using him as a utility belt. You want him in the bullpen, he's in the bullpen. You want him in the starting rotation, he can give your guys a night off. That guy's the go-to glue man that you want in your lineup. So it's just going to happen, for me at least, for the sustainability of this team. You're going to have to get production from all the pitchers, not just the 3 that are dominating, because they're really, like you said, Evan, carrying the weight of this team. That can't happen for too long.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I so badly want a Dodgers Blue Jays World Series. That's like that would be I would be the villain yet again.
You're gonna be back on campus then. Yeah,
You'd be in Toronto.
Yeah.
You're in enemy lines.
I'll be like, hey, how y'all doing? How's
showing up to class in a Dodgers hat. Yeah.
Not trying to get shot right now. What's going on? But now that we are on the subject, I did want to talk about my boys, because for my birthday, it was on Tuesday, and I was able to go to the Dodgers Giants game, which was just an incredible atmosphere. Honestly, a lot less people than I was expecting. I don't know if that has to do with the LA traffic, considering it took us over an hour to get to the game. But 20 minutes back. So that's how you love LA traffic. But it was definitely something. And I got to see Julio Urias pitch. And my God, that I don't know what Dave Roberts does. Sometimes I love him. Sometimes I hate him. Julio Urias had 65 pitches through 6 innings and was taken out of the game. And I didn't see an injury. So I don't know what this analytics bullshit is, but Julio Urias easily could have thrown a complete game. And I don't know. I know, like, he's not a pitcher that really throws a ton of innings throughout the year, but like, come on, it was really annoying. But the reason why I'm talking about the pitching is because this was kind of not a major concern, but definitely was raising eyebrows heading into the season, given the fact that the Dodgers had lost. I mean, obviously Trevor Bauer, we know that situation. They lost Corey Knebel to your beloved Phillies. Mario Kenley Jansen was a shocking move to the Atlanta Braves. Joe Kelly to the White Sox. Just a lot of guys moving around. Corey Seager, obviously, but that's offensive. But the Dodgers currently own the best ERA in baseball. They're kind of leading down the most important stats, but I didn't want to get into that. What I wanted to get into was Andrew Heaney, who was absolutely rancid with the New York Yankees, and the Dodgers brought him in, I guess, thinking of a Robbie Ray sort of project, similar to what the Toronto Blue Jays did when Robbie Ray won the Cy Young. And so far, Andrew Heaney's 2 starts with the Dodgers, a .68 whip, hasn't given up an earned run yet, 16 Ks, 3 walks through 10 1/3 innings pitched. So I wanted to ask the experts here, do you guys view Andrew Heaney as a potential next Robbie Ray?
You want to take this?
Whoever wants to go.
I can jump in. Yeah, sure. Okay. When I think of a starting pitcher that's having a breakout year like this, there's 2 things that I consider. One is the sample size. Obviously, here we have 2 starts. I don't know how familiar you guys are with this saying, but it's a pretty common thing for, starting pitchers to believe that, if you have 20 starts in a season, right? 10 of them, you're going to be average. 5 of them, you're going to have your absolute best stuff. And 5 of them, you're not going to be able to throw a strike. You're going to be hanging curveballs over the plate. You're going to be absolutely, what the hell is going on? That's a pretty sustainable model for most pitchers. They have 5 great starts. They have 5 really crappy starts, and they have 10 average starts. And that's what you get out of your starting pitcher. The sample size at 2 starts is not, as great as the numbers are, hasn't given up an earned run. I mean, an incredible whip right now at .68, but the sample size is not large enough for me to be, claiming him to win the next Cy Young award.
Sorry, I didn't mean like in that aspect of like not being the NL Cy Young, but kind of projecting.
Just kind of coming out of nowhere and doing his thing.
Because he gave up 13 home runs and 12 starts with the Yankees. And
Andrew Heaney has not been he doesn't have that kind of track record. And it's great to see the success he's having right now. I hope it continues, and I hope he proves me wrong. But I'm not ready to, say that he's figured it out and he's, found it after like 10 years of his major league career, just because he's had 2 really good starts. The other thing that's worth noting with Andrew Heaney is I believe he was drafted by Miami, or at least made his major league debut in Miami. After that, played his entire major league career in the American League, Angels, Yankees, and now he's finally with the Dodgers. We see that a lot with pitchers who switch leagues, that they're now facing a bunch of batters who have never faced them before, who have no idea what the scouting report is on him. Sure, they can watch film, but they're guys who have had 0 at-bats against him. I'm willing to bet that if you go back to some of the lineups he's faced in these 2 starts.
No, it's okay. We don't have to go back.
There's very few guys that have faced Andrew Heaney before. And that's a serious advantage for the pitcher because, as much as they have all this technology now on, all the iPads in the dugouts and in the film room to replay all that stuff and to get a feel for the pitcher before you get in the game, there's nothing like having actual at-bats against the guy, right? So, he deserves all the credit in the world for the 2 starts that he's had, but I'm going to need to see a little bit more production out of him if I'm ready to say that this is the new Andrew Heaney just yet. But I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he turns it around.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too, because that would be a steal. I think they got him for like 7 or 8 million. So to get a nice number 5 for that type of value, it would be very fortunate and kind of an advantage to have heading into the latter stages of the season. Mario, is there anything you want to add? I wanted to add one other segment. I didn't include it in our outline, but I just wanted kind of like as a table talk discussion, if you want to get into that.
I'll just say one thing, and it's really quick, but Andrew Heaney, if I'm going to see a little bit more from him and maybe consider him in that category, I want to see him at his best when the hitters are at their best. Right now, the hitters are all over the place. You could call it the baseball. We've called it the baseball at times. There's so many factors playing into how poor the batters have been playing, and it's really uncommon and it's getting a little concerning. But if he's going to be dominating when these batters, when the weather warms up and these guys are in their midseason form and he is in this exact same form, yeah, maybe you could tip your hand into that conversation. But as of right now, I think I'm going to stick to one side of the fence here and say, let's pump the brakes. I think he's 10 innings. So it's not too much, but doesn't mean he's not going to be there at the end of the year. So we just got to see a little bit more. And if he can keep it consistent, it's a terrific win for the LA Dodgers, something that I hate to credit them with, but we find ourselves in this situation time and time again.
No, don't worry. I was like, why the hell did we sign this guy? Like at the beginning of the year, I'm like, and we gave him how much money for this? But, sometimes you find a diamond in a rough. But I wanted to have this table talk discussion. We were talking about it in the group chat, and it's about all these. I don't know what happened with the New York Mets, but they all of a sudden spend a ton of money, and now they've become the most hated team in baseball. They're constantly getting hit by pitches, numerous ejections, numerous bench clearing brawls. I don't know what happened over the offseason, if we completely missed something that the manager of the Mets said that completely ticked off every team in the major leagues. But I saw, I think it was Mario that brought it up, like they were hit, or even Mateo, they were hit like 18 times in their first 17 games.
I think it was 18 times in their first 19 games or something like that. Yeah.
Like I don't get it. And we're seeing numerous ejections. We just saw like Madison Bumgarner getting tossed, which I thought was horrible because the umpire didn't even look at his hand. But I just found it ironic that it was the Mets players that were suspended in this situation and not like the Phillies or the Cardinals players who were the ones kind of starting everything. So, Mary, I want to ask you, what do you think's going on with the New York Mets? It's really weird to see. Is it because they spent all this money? Are teams in their division jealous that their owner has money?
Yeah, this is an interesting situation. I don't think there's a correlation with a lot of if and ands. It just happens. It's coincidence. I don't know. Guys getting hit by pitches. If they're successful, you're going to probably want to plunk them and maybe try to get an advantage there. It's just guys finding any way they can to get something out of them. I can't really make you a direct comparison because I've never seen something like this happen. And it's really hard to pinpoint the reason why, but yeah. I mean, Buck Showalter is he's an old school guy. He'll stand his territory, he'll stand his ground, but no, I can't give you an exact reason, man. That's baseball, and it's just a weird time for baseball where everything's up in the air. Everyone's trying to get used to things. For all I know, they can be getting plunked by pitchers because the pitchers don't really have that great of a feel for the baseball. So I could not give you an exact reason as to why guys are getting hit, guys are getting ejected. It's just I don't know. It's a weird question to ask. It's a weird question to answer because I'm not on the inside
Yeah.
looking out, right? I'm
I
just trying to get it from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because like
It is
I've never
interesting.
seen this before where like one specific, and it's not like a team versus a team. It's like kind of the Mets versus the world. Like I don't know what's going on all of a sudden here, but it's just really weird. Mateo, do you have any thoughts on this? Like, did Steve Cohen tweet something that we don't know about? Like, did he quickly delete something? Could we get a check on that?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the Mets have kind of made themselves the bad guys, as weird as that is to sort of say. I mean, the season opened up against Washington, if
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
correct. They
Yep.
played Washington to start the season, and obviously they have really young pitching staff. Josiah Gray is the headliner there, and they've had control issues all year, and the Mets got hit a ton in that series, and for
Hmm.
whatever reason the players all took it to heart. And I think, as Mario was saying, it has a lot to do with Buck Showalter and how old fashioned the guy is. And, who knows if this is a strategy to sort of, help the team, rally together and sort of, build camaraderie. Like, they're coming after us. We need to stand our ground kind of thing. Maybe that's his strategy to get this team on the same page and to sort of, build that brotherhood that you need to have a successful season, which they're doing a great job of so far.
Hmm.
Or maybe it was just happenstance and the players took it personally and they created their own sort of self-fulfilling prophecy of we are the bad guys and everybody hates us because we're the Mets and we're the best. And
Hmm.
whatever it is, it's been working for them because they've channeled this, you know, anger that's really baseless, because I don't think anyone's actually coming for the Mets except for that Cardinals game where there was
Yeah.
that brawl. But I don't think anybody's actually, going out to City Field and being like, oh man, I want to beat up the Mets today and, really show the Mets because, oh, screw the Mets. And, we hate the Mets because no one's jealous of the Mets except for
Yeah.
the fact that they're having a really good season. And if that's what it takes to get your team into the game, if that's what it takes to get you into that headspace to lock in and feel like it's everyone against you, and that's what's working for this team, then credit to them. Because if this is a master plan that's been crafted by Buck Showalter, he deserves a lot of credit for this.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing to see. I was just very confused by it. I'm checking because I know their owner Steve Cohen is very active
Oh yeah.
on Twitter. We know that, and but I just want to segue over to another team in the NL East, and that's the Atlanta Braves, who have had quite the World Series hangover. And I just want to get a little off topic here. My boss at work apparently knows Max Fried's dad and
Interesting.
was supposed to. I don't know how. Like it just really small world because Max Fried went to school a couple miles away from my house, and he was supposed to go to the Atlanta Braves game that Max Fried ended up winning, wasn't able to go. But anyway, the Atlanta Braves are going through a really bad World Series hangover. They're currently 12 and 15, third in the NL East, and we obviously know the big offseason move was bringing in Matt Olson, letting Freddie Freeman walk in free agency, walk right into our hands. Uh, I just want to ask, Mario, I want to ask you this. Do you think Alex Anthopoulos will ever regret the Freddie Freeman move? But I also want to ask you this as well. If the Braves were, let's say the Braves were, it's either 12 and 15 right now, let's say they were like 16 and 11 or like 17 and 10, would Alex Anthopoulos still regret the move?
It's me. It's me. I don't think so. I mean, listen, there's a lot of baseball left to play. The Braves are really dipping below expectations. They obviously, when the World Series comes with a high bar to be set the following year, and they have not lived up to it whatsoever. Matt Olson, him included, obviously wasn't on that team, but he hasn't been giving the production that the Atlanta Braves and Alex Anthopoulos would have liked so far. And that's what we have to look at so far. There is nothing pointing in that direction where the Braves are going to be a complete going off the rails this year. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be one of the fighting teams in the NL East. I don't have too much concern. I think going back to the Braves struggles, it's a lot of a chemistry thing. Like Acuna just got back. Marcelo Zuna didn't even play all last year for his personal reasons.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things up in the air. Guys are getting back used to it, getting into the swing of things. I saw this one clip where you can see a little bit of tension. Guys are frustrated. It was Ozuna didn't round third and head home, and Alzi Albies hit like a double that he should have scored on. Ozuna should have scored, but he wasn't hustling. And
I
Ozzy
think it was
Albies
a
was
pass ball.
something around there.
I
It
think it's
was,
something like that. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
regardless of where the ball ended up, as a baseball player, I can say, and a lot of people were saying Ozuna should have scored if he was actually hustling and his head was fully in the game, which it was not. And that could be the problem here. A lot of these guys aren't fully engaged. And Ozzy Albies, on him, he called them out, and there was just looked like a little bit of a tense moment there. And if they're going to keep holding each other accountable, that's all I really want to see from this team. It's that just because you won a World Series doesn't mean you are off the hook for the next couple of years. You guys are still hungry. You guys want to put in your best efforts. Everyone's passionate. It's either everyone's on the same boat or nobody's on the boat. So I like to see that from them. There's some fight. They want to be there. They want to get back to where they were because they love winning. Once you get that feeling, you never want to lose it. That's why the dynasties are made. The Atlanta Braves could very well be the next dynasty that we see in baseball. We don't know this, but if guys are acting like that and they're that passionate, it's just a month of May, and it could be just a month of May. It could be all that, and you have the rest of the season to look forward to. And I have no issues and no concerns really with the Atlanta Braves just yet. It's getting a little weird, but again, it's really early in the season. If it gets into June and mid-July and they're still scuffling a little bit, sitting third place, then there's got to be some changes made. And then you could say Alex Anthopoulos is kind of regretting making that deal. If Freddie Freeman's doing well in that Dodger blue and Matt Olson's just kicking the bucket in his hometown. So it's gonna be interesting how it plays out, but I got full confidence in the Braves. They've been in this situation before and they turn a World Series out of it. So always hold your horses when you're talking about the Braves.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the only reason I bring it up, I don't mean it just from, like, oh, will they ever, like, the Braves are now going to be a dumpster fire of a team. What I was more looking at, and I think Mateo and even you touched on it, is I'm talking about leadership in the clubhouse and who is that leader. And I think we could all say for at least the last 5 to 6 years, maybe even 7 years, that was Freddie Freeman, who is now gone. So I'm just thinking, from sometimes it's bigger than baseball is what they say. And I just think someone needs to step up, whether that now be Ozzy Albies, Ronald Acuna Jr., who's recently back, but someone now needs to acquire the voice of the locker room. And that's the only reason I said, would they regret it? Because a lot of guys respected Freddie, and it just seems like a huge void is now left when he left. And it doesn't seem like anyone's really claimed that voice in the locker room. Mateo, I'll ask you the same question. Obviously the record's kind of different, Dodgers 16-7, Braves 12-15. So you're seeing kind of how the two teams are faring with their respective free agents. Do you think the Atlanta Braves will regret this down the line in terms of kind of losing their quote unquote captain?
Yeah, in terms of leadership, that's a really interesting question, obviously, because there was the whole situation with Acuna and Freddie Freeman, and how true those reports were and how much they got blown out of proportion, just out of translation, is something that's going to be debated for forever. I know that we there's conflicting reports on both sides, so who knows what their relationship was really like, how that sort of passing of the torch really went, even though Freddie Freeman really didn't get a chance to pass the torch because they kind of did him dirty. But yeah, it feels like a clubhouse that is kind of missing that leadership that Freddie Freeman provided, and it's missing that, not because there's nobody there that's good enough and nobody there that's enough of a leader to step up and take charge, but more so just because it's a younger team now. There's the control is in guys like Acuna and in guys like Albies and Swanson and Riley. Those are the guys that are the face of this team, and these are the vocal guys in the locker room. And there's growing pains with that too. As much as you have to grow as a player, you also have to grow as a leader. And though the wins aren't necessarily where they need them to be right now, the offense isn't as bad as people are fleshing it out to be. They've been pretty average. The OPS is around middle of the pack in the major leagues. The average is slightly below that. All the offensive metrics are hovering there. They're waiting to break out, but they're 5th in home runs, which is not something I knew before 5 seconds ago when I went to go check this. The teams in front of them, the Brewers, who are first in their division, the Yankees, who are first in their division, the Angels, who are first in their division, and the Jays, who, the other day were the leading team in home runs, who are second in their division and still having a pretty good season. The Braves are 5th in that lineup. And the rest of the offensive teams behind them, those are good lineups. There's good lineups behind them. There's good bats in the Braves lineup. they're still a very good team. They're still a very scary team. No pitcher feels comfortable against this lineup. And like Mario said, it's May. It's not time to freak out. Sure, you may have some leadership problems. Sure, you may have some conflict going on in the locker room, but that sorts itself out naturally. There's a hierarchy to baseball where the guys that are in charge, the guys that are in charge, and eventually they'll be able to step up, and this ship is going to be righted, and the Braves are going to be right where they need to be. I'm not worried. There's too much talent on this team for them to be a disappointment.
Yeah, no, you were bringing up also kind of like their elite bats. I mean, we're seeing Austin Riley with the home runs. I think the one issue and the one thing that I was seeing is that they're getting the home runs, but not a lot of runs batted in. It's kind of like the home runs are because, or the RBIs are because of their home runs, and we're not really seeing. I believe it was Dansby Swanson, 1 home run, 9 RBIs. Riley, I think 4 home runs, 7 RBIs. So.
But again, you look at RBIs and they're 16th in Major League Baseball. They're
average.
They're average. They're waiting to break out. They're waiting for the guys to figure it out. And eventually when they do, it's going to click and they're going to be a really good offensive team.
Yeah, maybe just too much, champagne over the summer, couple visits to Napa Valley. Yeah, a couple visits to Napa Valley, and it's kind of just how the cookie crumbles there. But guys, I think that's it for this episode. We're almost, I believe, a month in to the MLB regular season. It's just crazy to say that. It's been fun watching all the games, fun having baseball back. It's great going to the games, the ballparks. Like sometimes you forget like just how beautiful it is going to a game. And I remember just sitting out in left field, walking up the stairs. I'm like, oh my God, like this is on a Monday night, just really fun going to games now. And that will do it. Any final words? Speak now or forever hold your peace until next week.
I'm good. Next week we get back together and talk baseball as always. It's always fun. Always fun.
Alrighty, guys, that will do it. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 15 of Breaking News